Daniel Cormier has just delivered two major updates that are shaking up the lightweight division. According to him, the UFC initially tried to book a massive matchup between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett. On top of that, Cormier believes the fight that absolutely needs to happen above all others is Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. Recent news out of Spain appears to support that direction. Spanish journalist Alvaro Colmano, who has been extremely reliable on Topuria-related reporting for years, revealed that the entire roadmap for Topuria has now changed. He stated that private matters behind the scenes have led to a shift in plans, and whatever is coming next in the lightweight picture is going to surprise a lot of people. Colmano made it clear that Topuria is not fighting in January, and February is also unlikely. His expectation is a return in the spring. With that timeline, the only matchup that truly makes sense is Arman Tsarukyan, a fight that multiple sources have been hinting at over the past week. The UFC still wants Topuria versus Tsarukyan, but the fight will simply not take place at the beginning of the year as originally hoped. There were even rumors suggesting that Topuria might vacate the lightweight title, but so far there is nothing concrete to support that claim. At this point, all indications still point to Topuria versus Tsarukyan happening, just later than everyone expected. Michael Bisping and Paul Felder recently discussed the lightweight title picture, and they emphasized how crowded the race has become. Pimblett wants a title shot, Gaethje wants a title shot, and Tsarukyan wants the shot he has been working toward. The biggest question now is where Ilia Topuria stands in all of this. Bisping pointed out that a champion has an obligation to defend against the very best contenders, and sooner or later Topuria will have to address the growing pressure from the rest of the division. Bisping added that he had seen reports suggesting Topuria preferred a fight against Paddy Pimblett. While that matchup would certainly attract attention and might be fun for fans, it is not the fight that makes the most sense from a competitive standpoint. If Topuria defeats Pimblett, he would still eventually have to face Arman Tsarukyan. The lightweight division is heating up, and whatever happens next is set to define the landscape for the rest of the year. A major revelation has just emerged from Russian media after Osenbek Badayev released a preview of his latest interview with Arman Tsarukyan. In the footage, Tsarukyan confirmed that he had a verbal altercation with Paddy Pimblett only hours after UFC Qatar. According to him, the incident took place during the post-event period when multiple fighters and teams were circulating through the same hotel facility. With so many big names in close proximity and emotions running high, tensions were not surprising, especially considering that several other altercations reportedly occurred that same night. Tsarukyan didn't attempt to downplay the encounter. He made it clear that the situation never turned into a physical fight but acknowledged that the argument escalated into an intense back-and-forth exchange. The clash happened shortly after Tsarukyan's dominant submission victory over Dan Hooker, a win that instantly boosted his standing in the lightweight title race and placed him directly into championship discussions. Pimblett, meanwhile, appears to be moving toward a potential fight with Justin Gaethje, which many insiders now view as the most likely next step for him. Tsarukyan also revealed that the UFC has already communicated internal plans regarding the top of the division. According to him, the organization is preparing to match him with lightweight champion Ilia Topuria next, and that remains the priority despite delays surrounding Topuria's return schedule. Tsarukyan went even further, stating that the UFC is not pleased with Gaethje publicly demanding a title shot or threatening retirement if he does not receive one. Based on his comments, the promotion wants the title picture resolved in an orderly way rather than through public pressure campaigns. The lightweight division has been extremely stagnant for months, with no clear progression and multiple contenders advocating for championship opportunities. However, if Tsarukyan versus Topuria is finalized and Pimblett versus Gaethje also comes together, the division would finally regain momentum. Such matchups would reopen the top 5 and provide clarity on who truly belongs in the title conversation. Tsarukyan emphasized during the interview that his focus is entirely on winning the belt, and he is prepared to face Topuria regardless of when the champion returns. He made it clear that no amount of trash talk, whether from Pimblett or any other contender, will distract him from his goal. His message was simple: he earned his position by fighting the toughest competition and intends to finish what he started. With multiple rivalries now brewing simultaneously, the lightweight division is on the verge of one of its most explosive periods in years. The MMA community is edging closer to something that seemed impossible just weeks ago: the idea of Jon Jones fighting at the White House. Initially, Dana White dismissed the possibility, saying he could not trust Jones enough to allow such a high-profile event. Most fans assumed the conversation was over. But the situation changed rapidly when Jones publicly apologized to Dana, and Dana accepted the apology. Overnight, the tone surrounding the entire storyline shifted, and the idea of a historic White House fight suddenly became realistic rather than fictional. Now, the debate has turned to who Jones should face if the event materializes. A large group of fans wants Jones to take on Alex Pereira, one of the UFC's most powerful draws. Others believe the White House stage demands a heavyweight title defense rather than a super fight. Chael Sonnen has now entered the conversation with his own perspective, calling for Jones to fight Pereira, but not at heavyweight. Sonnen believes the matchup should happen at light heavyweight because it puts an actual championship on the line. In his view, a venue as historic as the White House deserves a headliner with a belt at stake. Sonnen argues that although Jones has gained muscle for heavyweight, both he and Pereira walk around at comparable weights. If Pereira can cut to 205, Sonnen is convinced that Jones can do the same. He further explains that a fight involving Pereira without making him the main event would require an extraordinary justification, since Pereira is a reigning world champion and one of the UFC's top attractions. Therefore, if Pereira fights at the White House, the main event should be for a title, and the light heavyweight belt is the logical centerpiece. According to Sonnen, the UFC can accomplish everything at once. Give Jones a chance to prove he's serious, give Pereira a major showcase, and headline a historical event with a championship fight. Sonnen insists that all the questions are answered if Jones simply cuts to 205 pounds. He recalls that even at his heaviest outside of training, Jones generally walked around at roughly 228 pounds, not much larger than he was during his original light heavyweight run. Because of this, Sonnen believes Jones returning to 205 is physically realistic and solves every obstacle standing in the way of the White House event. If this vision comes together, the UFC would produce one of the most iconic and commercially powerful matchups in history: Jon Jones vs. Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight title on the grounds of the White House. The idea has gone from impossible to genuinely possible in a matter of weeks. Ian Gary is once again shaking up the MMA world, and this time he has set his sights directly on the new welterweight champion, Islam Makhachev. In a recent interview, Gary stated that he saw obvious holes in Makhachev's striking during UFC 322. He admitted that Islam looked clean, calm, and composed on the feet against Jack Della Maddalena, but insisted that a deeper technical breakdown reveals clear striking gaps that he would exploit with zero hesitation. Gary then leaned fully into the villain persona he's embraced in recent months. When asked about Leon Edwards' knockout loss, he called it his Christmas present, adding that he should call Carlos Prates and thank him for the gift. He framed the situation as the next chapter in the long-running combat rivalry between Dagestan and Ireland, saying the storyline began with Khabib Nurmagomedov vs. Conor McGregor and continued with Usman Nurmagomedov vs. Paul Hughes. For Gary, the only way to restore pride for Ireland is to take Makhachev's title. He expressed absolute confidence in his ability to do so. Gary acknowledged that it would not be an easy fight, but said he is convinced he has the tools to break Islam's dominant run and bring the belt home. For him, defeating Makhachev would represent the greatest accomplishment of his career, and he claimed he has already begun visualizing the moment. Gary went deeper into his technical assessment of the matchup. He praised Islam's improvement on the feet and said he was impressed by Makhachev's calmness and composure against Jack. However, he stressed there are still striking vulnerabilities that any high-level striker can see. He pointed out that once Islam grabs hold of a leg, he becomes the best in the world, intelligent, risk-averse, and technically perfect in his wrestling. Gary recognizes the threat of Islam's control and submission game, calling it genuinely elite. Despite that respect, he dismissed the idea that it would stop him. He said his fight IQ, precision striking, elusiveness, height, and reach make him a uniquely difficult opponent for the champion. According to Gary, he is longer, taller, and rangier than anyone Islam has ever faced. He highlighted that he is also undefeated against southpaws and believes that navigating Makhachev's pressure will be easier for him than for previous challengers. Gary insists that Islam's only reliable path to victory is getting to his leg, and he is confident that will not be easy against someone with his distance management and movement. As his confidence grows and his name continues to generate headlines, Gary has positioned himself as the next major disruptor in the welterweight division, and he's made it clear that Islam Makhachev is the only opponent he wants next. Renato Moicano has officially responded to Dan Hooker's recent call-out, and his reaction has quickly become one of the most talked about moments of the week. During a previous interview with the Mac Life, Hooker called out Moicano for a potential fight, saying they should face one another because they both suck. The comments immediately gained attention, and now Moicano has fired back in his own unique style. Moicano surprisingly agreed with Hooker's statement that both fighters suck, and that both are older, but he made it clear he believes Hooker is much worse. According to Moicano, Hooker lacks knockout power, grappling ability, and a true ground game. He said that when comparing their skills head-to-head, he believes he stands above Hooker in every department. Moicano criticized Hooker's ranking and said that despite their mutual decline, Hooker has fallen even further behind. He added that fans would absolutely love their matchup, but he doubts the UFC will book it, even though he would gladly sign the contract. Moicano then shifted to the lightweight title picture, offering his take on who deserves the next shot. Although he emphasized that he is not particularly fond of Arman Tsarukyan on a personal level, he stated that Tsarukyan is undeniably the most deserving contender based on merit. He pointed out that Tsarukyan's record speaks for itself, with his only significant losses coming against Mateusz Gamrot in a razor-close fight and Islam Makhachev on short notice during his UFC debut. For Moicano, those results don't diminish Tsarukyan's resume, and his recent performances prove he is the clear #1 contender. Moicano also dismissed the idea of Paddy Pimblett fighting for the championship anytime soon. He says Pimblett reaching number 5 in the rankings makes no sense, noting that his recent wins are over Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, and Michael Chandler, and that those victories do not justify a title shot. Moicano believes the UFC has no viable argument to place Pimblett ahead of Tsarukyan or even ahead of other top contenders. He also addressed Justin Gaethje, acknowledging Gaethje's most recent victory but pointing out that his knockout loss to Max Holloway cannot be ignored. In Moicano's view, the division has only one logical next move. Arman Tsarukyan should fight for the lightweight title next. He believes ranking, resume, and recent momentum all point to the same conclusion, and the UFC should make the booking rather than entertaining hype-driven matchups.